Hi,
Basil,
Ariel.
hi, so nice to have you with me today. I'm so excited to learn about this. I have 1 million questions. But first, before we get into the world of 3D printing homes, please tell me about yourself. Introduce yourself for my audience.
My name is Basil Starr. I'm CEO and co-founder of Polari, and we're a builder of sustainable, healthy homes and communities.
Just the guy I want to talk to. So, Basil, when we spoke, you had quite a bit of a journey to get to where you are now. And I actually have more questions about how you really chose 3D printing homes and what the challenges are, how you really got to this place. So, can you give us a little bit of your journey until you
Certainly. Yeah, so I've been in real estate and supply chain management for over 20 years now. I started initially working at big banks, JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley on the real estate side. That's how I learned the business. And then during the financial crisis in 2008, ended up going overseas and working for one of the largest supply chain management firms in the world, based in Hong Kong, and ultimately started my first company there. It was focused on supply chain of steel from raw materials to finished products. I grew that company based in Hong Kong, but it was quite international. Grew it and ultimately sold it to a strategic buyer. And that was my first experience as an entrepreneur. I really loved it and wanted to repeat it back home here in the US. And so I came back and started initially investing in real estate, doing fix and flips, small ground up developments, and started a construction company to be quite hands-on and understand, what I'm working on, and ultimately drive the outcome. And very quickly realized how inefficient and outdated traditional construction is. We're building like it's 100 years ago in terms of materials and process that we use. And I wanted to focus on the latest technologies in this space to make it more sustainable, more efficient, and be able to build better homes because we're ultimately have a housing crisis in this country. We're short 5 million homes nationwide. Supply hasn't really kept up with the demand for homes. And part of that reason is really the outdated process. It takes too long to build a home. And every home we build is very much custom. We're replicating the whole process on each site, that we're building a home on. And so if you think about in terms of prefabrication and manufacturing, what type of benefits that brings, we manufacture everything, all the products in our lives. And so would you rather your car being manufactured in your driveway or in a factory? But that's what we do with homes every day. We are creating effectively a manufacturing site on every lot that we're building a home on. So
okay.
very early on, we focused on prefabrication and really manufactured components that are assembled on site, creating a very quick installation as if you're putting together a Lego set.
Sure. Amazing. I don't think I told you this, but I actually also started my career in logistics and freight forwarding. Not for steel, because I imagine you learned more about the real estate industry by way of that application, but all kinds of freight consolidation and different things out of college. And I do find that it helps me understand this industry from a different kind of perspective. I had been living in Boston when we started Disrupt CRE, and one of the things that really got me interested in this industry as a young person out of college with no context for commercial real estate whatsoever was living in Boston circa 2013. We had a few, I want to say three different billion-dollar developments being built at the time. And you would drive around the city watching these massive developments sit idle, waiting for parts to be shipped from China, from wherever they were being shipped from. And I could not understand for the life of me, with all of the smartest, most brilliant minds in the world at Harvard and, Northeastern and MIT and you name it, right there, and like locally, why we were not printing these parts on site. I could not understand. And I started volunteering for some of the local associations, how to build their Twitter profile and things that I was equipped for at 22, 23 years old. And I would ask questions to, the folks who were developing, in development in Boston. And they had no idea what I was talking about. Like as if I was speaking another language talking about 3D printing. Time I even understood about 4D printing. And I remember when we started the conferences, I had to talk to myself about not scaring people, about really making the conversation approachable and making them feel like the technology was for them and for the sake of doing better business. And so that was 10 years ago. And it's just amazing to be having this conversation right now. Just a full circle moment for me, really understanding that this was a major entry for me, even being interested in this industry and realizing, wow, what opportunity exists here for people not even to understand what I'm talking about at this stage. Where do you think we're at now in terms of the landscape of 3D printing, the 3D printing industry as it relates to real estate? How mature is it? Where are we
I
at?
think Yeah, I think overall, when you look at 3D printing, it's a manufacturing revolution. It's industrial revolution 2.0, as I like to call it, because the first industrial revolution was really centered around manufacturing and really scaling up manufacturing of all things, all products. And the approach to that type of manufacturing, it's mostly reductive, so you take a part and then you reduce it to the size that you need, or you cut it down to something you need. You create molds for things. So it's that was the first kind of wave of manufacturing. With 3D printing, that just revolutionizes entire manufacturing industry because it's additive manufacturing. So you are adding layer by layer whatever material that you're printing without any weight, without having to create expensive molds. And it's totally changing the game in a lot of industries. And it started out, as you mentioned, it's 3D printing's been around for quite some time, but it was first very simple, kind of like printers that would print, little plastic
iPhone cases and
yeah,
little,
it's more of a
pencil
novelty.
caddies. Yeah.
But then that progressed to other industries, to parts industries, for example, aircraft, auto parts that are being 3D printed today, and not plastic, but with all kinds of materials. Metal is being 3D printed, wood is being 3D printed, stone is being 3D printed. So you have a lot of different materials that they're able to be 3D printed, and that is really kind of pushing that uh, the industry, across kind of all verticals into different materials and products. And with real estate specifically, we saw that in the past 5 years. And there are two different approaches. First approach is on-site 3D printing. So that's bringing a robot on site to 3D print walls. And effectively, it started just with printing concrete as a typical kind of concrete building, would do. You would pour concrete using kind of your traditional pouring methods. The 3D printer kind of automates that, makes it exact. You could print the entire house, wall structure, using an on-site 3D printer. With that technology, so it speeds up the framing process, certainly improves it a lot, but then you still have a lot of on-site labor and work to be done for your insulation, your interior drywall. So a lot of things that still are kind of very labor intensive and are required on site. The second approach is to 3D print panels in a factory. And panels are wall sections. And so it's 3D printed in the factory. It's completed in the factory, finished. So it's a fully complete panel that encapsulates everything from exterior to interior. And so what that does is that reduces the amount of labor and work on site significantly because you no longer need those trades, for stucco, for drywall, for insulation, for framing. You're just installing the panels that already have all of that. And so we're able to install effectively panels for an entire house and create a building envelope within 5 days. And that's something that was amazing to see when we did it with some of our first homes that we built in Palm Springs. And so we've proven that we could build a home, entire building envelope in 5 days, and an entire home in about 3 months. So the interior finishes take the longest actually because there is more kind of labor required as well as attention to detail as far as your cabinets, your flooring, fixtures, things like that. So that actually takes the longest, surprisingly, as opposed to entire structure being put together.
Amazing. You must have learned so much along the way, and I'm sure all the time. because technology is evolving, and this process, I imagine those robots are getting more and more sophisticated all the time. I'm so curious, when you first started, first of all, what urged you to even start looking into this? Because it is quite a jump. You think, yes, 3D printing, it's so much more efficient than traditional construction. But for your average individual, even in real estate, in commercial real estate, residential real estate, I mean, I do think that the people that work in this industry are exceptional, but it's still a rare individual who says, I'm going to go from a construction company to a 3D printing construction company. So what was it that really pushed you to take it seriously and move forward? And then what was the learning process like to actually be able to take those steps?
Well, first of all, I think an important part was that not having any preconceived notions. I was open to any new technologies that would improve the process and improve the materials. So I studied a lot of different methods and products, visited manufacturing facilities for 20 different manufacturers to see, what their process and materials that they were using in manufacturing. And the next level, so the first step was really to try to identify the best kind of offsite construction technologies, and then look into those technologies and see what manufacturing process is really the most effective. To me, that was 3D printing, because as I mentioned, I see that as revolutionizing the entire manufacturing industry. So that's why early on, we worked with multiple manufacturers of modular homes, but ultimately ended up focusing more on 3D printing and utilizing 3D printed panels, and then integrating the home, ourselves. So integrating a lot of other components to 3D printed panels, like roofing systems, your interiors, windows and doors, and really kind of integrating and marrying all those components in the best possible way to create the best possible product.
What a journey. Wow. I remember when we spoke and we originally got introduced, you're very casual about, I started the construction company, then I started the three, and it's so much more than that, but I love that you're able to say, yeah, that's what I did. I love it. It is you, in a way, yes, this technology has been around for a while, but it's that pioneer attitude, that entrepreneurial kind of hard line, that choice to just go for it, that sets you apart and then sets your products apart. And I think what really attracted to me to what you guys are doing, and why I wanted to talk to you on this podcast, because I've talked about technology for the last 10 years, but as it relates to health and wellness and how the built environment can really support the health of the people that are living, working, shopping, learning, all of the things inside of them, as well as the communities around them, that's where I think you guys are doing something a little bit different. Whether you're 3D printing or not, you have this real sense of value around health and wellness, and it's felt throughout your entire brand. And the first time I saw you guys and what you were doing, I was like, okay, these guys are not only using technology to do it better and continue to advance, but they're really paying attention to the details of what it feels like to be in that space, to live in that space, or potentially a community. Because I know you guys are also building communities, or you're partnering with developers to build full-scale communities. Is that right?
That's right.
Not just individual homes. Incredible. So how did this component of health and wellness play a part in, why was it so important to you?
So we started initially with a big focus on sustainability, and that was kind of part of the core DNA of the company. And ultimately, in my view, sustainability, certainly most people think about sustainability for the planet, but also sustainability is important for human life. And the fact that we spend most of our lives inside a home, so 70 to 90% of your life you would spend inside a home. How does the home environment impact your health and wellness over time? I think that's a very important question that hasn't been addressed. And we wanted to address it head on, because sustainability is how we build. It's the technologies that we use in terms of building, reducing waste, reducing carbon emissions, and then ultimately making these homes energy efficient, powered by renewable energy. So zero energy homes operationally going forward. That's amazing for the planet. And it's a huge leap in terms of how we build. But then focusing on what we build and how that affects the occupants, the residents that live in our homes, is equally or even more important. And so early on, I was a big proponent of the well standard. It was first a standard for office buildings, commercial buildings. I started working with them early on, and they wanted to create a standard for residential buildings. That was about 3 years ago. And so I joined the advisory board for residential and worked with a number of other advisors and the Well Building Institute to kind of put together the standards for residential homes. And this standard is currently in the pilot version. So there are a number of projects that are kind of adopting it right now in the residential space. And we're one of the companies that's designing our homes to be both LEED as well as WELL certified.
Incredible. And so, what are some of those details? Because I know you guys are not just paying attention to the materials and the energy, but even things I saw like noise reduction and indoor outdoor space. Like, what are those details?
And so the WELL standard actually has 10 different categories. So it's pretty comprehensive, and it starts with air and water. So that's basically, filtration systems as well as continuous monitoring of quality. And yeah, and as you mentioned, so after that, we're looking at things like lighting. And lighting is critical because it's as human beings, we're used to a circadian rhythm that's following the rhythm of the sun. And unfortunately, we disrupt it so much through artificial lighting throughout the day and night that really impacts our ability to fall asleep easily, have better night's sleep, and that's critical to health and wellness. And so we focus on doing circadian lighting throughout the home, and that's part of the standard as well. And a number of other categories I'll just mention is nourishment, movement, thermal comfort, sound, materials, mind, and community. Those are the other categories of the WELL standard. So there are features that within each category that a builder can incorporate that are scientifically proven to improve an occupant's health in a certain way.
Actually, just yesterday, listened to an incredible talk about lighting from the Well Forum from Dr. Shelley James. It was incredible. And I do hope to talk about more lighting and all of these different pillars. But lighting is such an important and I think often overlooked component to what it feels like in a space. Especially, I think more people are getting hip to the circadian rhythm of our body, our natural, daylight and what the signals that it reads into our brain through our eyes and winding down in the evening and what kind of light is optimal for sleep. So I think people are starting to at least be interested, and now it's our job to help educate them on what's possible and fill in those dots so we can all get there a little quicker.
Mhm.
Let's get back to the community building because I think it's really interesting. You can go ahead and build 3D print. I shouldn't even say build. Do you guys talk build or do you talk print? What's the
We
lingo
talk
here?
Bill just to kind of conform, to the industry vernacular. But yeah, ultimately, because we also don't want consumers to think about homes as being somewhat, different from traditional homes that people are used to. And sometimes there's this misconception that, well, if it's a new technology or if it's a prefabricated home, that it might be of a lesser quality. But quite contrary is true because those components are precision manufactured, so the level of quality coming out of the factory is much higher than it would be on site, which is constantly prone to weather conditions and human error.
It's interesting. I was actually one of the questions I really wanted to ask you was what are the common misconceptions that people have about what you do and about building in this manner? And it makes so much sense. I do want to quickly jump back to the community aspect because I know you guys have, I'm sure, partnerships in a lot of different directions, but one I imagine is, are you partnering with developers to build kind of these larger scale communities? Are you guys building it all yourself? How does that
Yes, we
work?
are. So we primarily partner with developers. We build for developers, and occasionally we launch a community ourselves. So we would identify the land and kind of vision for a community that we want to build, and then we would bring our investor partners, to fund that particular development. And Polari would kind of design it and build all the homes.
Incredible. Are you guys also programming a community in terms of kind of that placemaking feeling? Is that something you're partnering, to do? Is it something you're going to develop more and mature?
Yeah, so that's part community is similar to a home to us. Where in a home we are integrating the various components, so it's similar with a community, just at a larger scale. And the partnerships that are required also are specific to a community that would enhance that community. So in
Oh,
that regard, talking specifically at look at some of the categories of wellness like nourishment, and that's for us, it's incorporating hydroponic gardens in communities, for example, that allows a community
really?
to grow, herbs and vegetables, and really bring some of that food production locally, improve obviously the quality and the value that you're creating for yourself as a resident in the community.
This is my dream. I don't know if you listened to the episode with Gordon Smith from Agritexture, but if not, you should. And I think you would appreciate it. In
Definitely
particular,
will.
he designs urban farms around the world. And we talk
Mhm.
often about how if you have one building that has a community urban farm and you have one building without it, which one are you choosing? Obviously, you're going with the one that has the farm.
Mhm.
So, very interesting topic. And I think people underestimate the value of not only having that in your day-to-day community and what that means for somebody's life and to build friendships and connections and things like that with your neighbors, but also as developers for marketing. There is no doubt in my mind, and it's just the way the industry moves a lot of the time, is if it's marketing forward, it's likely going to be prioritized in terms of a tech stack. But that is just such an incredible, unique and rare opportunity for developers to take advantage of. And it just makes sense.
Mhm.
And talk about sustainable. In that episode, we talk about how if you're sitting in New York City ordering a salad, that salad traveled 3,000 miles to sit in front of you. That's crazy. And it's interesting because I know you guys are building in some terrain like desert and places where you may not normally be able to grow a garden. So to take advantage of hydroponic technology, I mean, it's incredible. Very cool. What kind of other partnerships? I know you guys are really have quite a sophisticated tech stack, and there's probably a lot that goes into the individual home. Do you have other partnerships that kind of just make sense for 3D printing or for the style of home you're
Yeah,
building?
so for example, for 3D printing and for the 3D printed panels, we are partners with a company called Mighty Buildings, which is a
Okay.
manufacturer, Mighty Buildings,
Yeah.
who manufacture 3D printed panels. We started working with them very early on when they were first just bringing their technology to market, and we helped commercialize it. We built the first homes with those 3D printed panels. So they're an important partner of ours. In addition to that, we partner with other component manufacturers. Think like Anderson for Windows, for example, Mitsubishi for heating and air, Tesla for solar and battery backup. So it takes a lot of different components to build a home. And we ultimately, first of all, kind of try to reduce the number of components to streamline things and standardize things,
Sure.
and then partner with the best manufacturers in each class for that particular component.
Amazing. What are some of the challenges that exist? Because it seems to me that why isn't everybody building with 3D printers? And this just seems like the wave of the future. And like I said, I thought that 10 years ago, and here you are sitting in front of me virtually. But why? What are the challenges with 3D printing? Are there major challenges? Are there things that,
Well, I think the challenges are generally transformational challenges for an industry that is quite old school and is resistant to change. And so there's this inertia of ecosystem that things have been always done, this way, a certain way, and everybody's used to it, the contractors, the architects, the engineers. So it takes time to change the perception and the mindset. And unfortunately, it's a lot of times it's generational. And so as the younger generation enters the workforce, they're much more likely to adopt these new technologies. And we're seeing that today. And so
what
it's
about the consumer, like your client, somebody who wants a 3D printed home? Do you think that it sounds like they're farther along, and that's usually the case in the industry?
And the buyers are also changing. And so now you have millennials are, the biggest home buyers in the country, and they typically value more sustainability. They value technology more and adopt technology at much higher rates.
It's so true. We're trying as millennials to be homeowners.
Yeah.
We're trying our best.
Yeah,
No,
at
but
the
it's
same
true. Our
time,
values, it's a totally different set of values, and I see that theme continuing even in the generations after us. Like these younger generations, I don't think that the baseline of valuing health and wellness is going away. I think it's going to be layered and stacked and matured with each next generation. So I mean, you guys are certainly doing incredible things, paving the way for the future. And I'm curious how you see this industry maturing. What's yet to come?
well, I think we're still at the very early stages of kind of transformational breakthroughs in the industry, but it is something that is happening right now, and we'll see a tremendous amount of changes in the next 10 years. And I just want Polari to be at the forefront of that change and driving that change.
Fantastic. I want to quickly jump back to chat a little bit about materials because you said some really interesting things that for you is probably just like an everyday situation. But for me, hearing that you can 3D print things like wood is quite mind blowing. I usually have a bigger reaction, but I was trying to like keep my cool. I was like, 3D printing wood? I have not heard that one yet. Even things like stone. You also mentioned concrete, which I think is more what people think of when they think of a 3D printed home, is they think of like the piping of the concrete. Although I'm so interested to understand if that's the same concrete that we are scraping the bottom of the ocean to create, because that's of course when you think, okay, commercial real estate and construction waste contribute 40% to global carbon emissions. It's a major issue, and you guys I know are mitigating a lot of that. But when we're talking about 3D printing things like wood, is that wood from a tree? Is that like a combination of ingredients that's replicating wood from a tree? Because we hear kind of in the news things like 3D printed meat these days. I think the United States just accepted not 3D printed, but manufactured chicken. So it's not a chicken that had to be slaughtered. It's it's blood, it's muscles, it's fat, and it's printed together so that it's the same kind of scientific chemical makeup. I'm not a scientist, obviously, but when we're translating this into material conversation, can you give me any insights about that? So
Yeah, and so
interesting.
that's why the material science area is very exciting right now. A lot of new materials are being invented and being tested, and with 3D printing, it's different process. I mean, you can't use the same 3D printer to print, metal and, wood and food. It's different kind of technology,
Sure.
different printers that will be used. But ultimately, a lot of materials are being adopted and changed in a way so that they're able to be 3D printed. For example, the panels that we utilize, the 3D printed panels, they're printed with a new material called lumus, which is a stone composite effectively. So it looks like a stone. It's made with mostly recycled materials, and it is 3D printed and instantly cured. And that was kind of one of the really unique features about their technology, is that they're able to cure it instantly, as they print, the thin lines of the lines of the material.
There's just only going to be more and more to learn. It sounds like you're a curious guy who wants to continuously kind of digest what is cutting edge of what you guys are doing, what materials are out there, what technologies are out there. So I have no doubt that Polari will lead the way into this next evolution of building, printing, whatever we want to call it. We're going to do away with the misconception that printing means lesser quality. I'm how you, I mean, I saw that you guys actually have a building that's dedicated to wellness. Is that like a structure that's called like a wellness cube? Is that right? Is that something?
Yeah, we call it a health house studio. Um,
Health House Studio?
yes.
What's that?
It's basically an accessory dwelling unit that you could put in the backyard that actually incorporates a lot of the wellness features and technologies. So you have a small gym with a full digital screen for a very immersive experience. You have a spa that has an infrared sauna, cold plunge. So some of the popular recovery techniques. And so something that's very, and it all encapsulated in a 400 square foot ADU that you could put in your backyard.
So this is where I'm so curious if you guys have had any kind of requests for putting these units even in amenity spaces in more commercial developments, because something like that just
Yes,
makes sense.
hospitality, specifically hospitality. So we're working with a
Yeah,
number of developers in the hospitality space,
that makes a lot of
specifically
sense.
developers who are interested in a building wellness resorts.
So interesting. I mean, it makes so much sense, and to be able to outsource to you guys, taking up such minimal amount of space. Maybe they have a few of them. So
Mhm.
smart. And I believe you told me that you guys actually have a medical professional on your team. Did I remember that right?
Yes, we do. We have
Wow.
one of our investors is a renowned orthopedic surgeon, and he's our medical advisor, working with our team to help design and then push forward our health and wellness initiatives within real estate space. And so it's amazing. I think we're probably the first builder to have a medical advisor, but that's how we think in terms of developing a home as a product. We view it as a product that is constantly to be improved and iterated. And so as part of that, we partnered with Stanford University, their Center for Integrated Facility Engineering, where we partnered with them on R&D. And we're working also with an accelerator at the Stanford Business School, where we're applying design thinking methodology to our product development.
If you had to give me a little prediction, a little peek into the future of where you think this industry is heading, are there any things that you would say, hey, I'm really excited to see this part mature, or I'm really excited to see this part mature? When this part matures, that's when things are going to blow up for 3D printing homes. Or do you think we're there right now?
I think it is happening, and what's going to happen more so as far as specifically adoption of technologies and sustainability is regulation. And as we've seen that in the automotive industry, tax incentives for electric vehicles, it's starting to happen for homes. Now there is a tax incentive for energy efficient homes by Department of Energy. And so going forward, I see more of that happening on the incentive side, but also disincentive because we have more than 50 cities now with decarbonization regulations. And so over the next 20, 30 years, buildings have to decarbonize and new buildings have to be built differently with lower embodied carbon and energy efficiency in mind.
Well, let's hope and pray for sticking on this track, and not only our government at large, but like local municipalities, because each state is different, each city is different in terms of how they can incentivize, how they can regulate what's available. I'm from New York. When you think about solar on rooftops in New York City, it's extremely regulated. There's a lot of fire codes that prevent New York City rooftops for being utilized in a certain way. So each place has its own nuance, I imagine, that makes it, a few hurdles and a little bit challenging, but hopefully, we're moving together in this proper direction. Like you said, I think the buyer's changing, and they're valuing this concept more and more. So I actually could have I could go on forever because this is so interesting, and I could quite literally pick apart each component that you guys are doing and go down a rabbit hole. Each one is its whole own podcast episode. But you personally, Basil, what's something that really like connects you to this? You had talked about even your own health and a personal connection to this work that you're doing. Would you be willing to share?
Absolutely. I've kind of my whole life had a always a interesting kind of relationship, with health and wellness. I would go through cycles where I'd be really healthy and I'd be exercising, and then the work typically would take over, and I prioritize work, and then just kind of my exercise and nutrition goes down during that period, and ultimately I don't feel as well. And so it's kind of been cycles for a long time until really last year. I think it's because of the pandemic. During the pandemic, I ultimately became quite unhealthy. I wasn't eating right, I wasn't exercising, and I wasn't sleeping well. And so I last year wanted to make a big change, and it was a kind of a light bulb moment in my life. Wanted to really improve my health and focus on being healthy, and now especially with a lot of new science and research being done in health and wellness. Longevity is at the forefront of the conversation right now, and there are a lot of things that you can do without using expensive supplements or medical health care just to really improve your health. And so what I did is immediately focused on nutrition, what I eat and when I eat. I do intermittent fasting, for example, and exercise, really exercising 3 to 5 times a week. And once I really started on that journey, I found that within 3 months, I lost 30 pounds. I improved all of my biomarkers. I had high cholesterol. I had high stress levels. I had a lot of different things that ultimately kind of put me in a position where I wasn't my optimal self. And because it's not just your physical health translates, to your emotional, mental health, how you feel about.
Cycles back around and around.
So it's a virtuous cycle. And
Yeah.
so after I've done that and really kind of crossed that threshold, I feel great. And I've continued on this program and journey of basically really prioritizing exercise, nutrition, and sleep. I find that it just gives me a lot more energy every day. I'm happier and I'm more productive.
Thank you for sharing that. I think first of all, it's beautiful to hear that, and I'm so happy for you. Congratulations, because
Thank
it's a huge. I mean, it's life changing choices, and not only choices, but the discipline, the follow through, the commitment to yourself. It's huge, and I think so many people fell into that kind of negative health cycle during COVID because we couldn't even get out.
you.
Forget about circadian rhythm and seeing light in your eyeballs when you wake up or watching the sunset. Forget about that. We weren't going outside, but we were sitting around. But more than that, I think for entrepreneurs, the nature of being an entrepreneur is a lot of so it's no surprise that our health and wellness and how much we're going to take care of ourselves kind of also goes like this, depending on what's going on. And I find that as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you put yourself last. And I can only imagine for people who have kids and other responsibilities and things outside of just focusing on their business, it's very hard to put yourself first and take care of yourself. So I think that a lot of people will resonate with that. But even more so the fact that you've been able to kind of lift yourself out of that time. And I think once you feel how good it feels to not drag every day and have energy and feel happy as your baseline, you're like, wow, I can't believe I was living with a different kind of baseline.
And that has to be foundational. You have to put that first, just like, a safety procedure on any airplane, you must if there's a lack of oxygen, you must put on your mask first and then help others. Because if you're not in a position yourself to help others, well, you're not going to affect change. You're not going to do anything productive. And that's every day at work is like, if you're not at your utmost best, you're doing yourself a disservice. And so you must put that first, and then that translates to actually improve productivity.
Yourself, but you're doing a disservice for our whole industry, which I often talk about the weight of responsibility that we have because you have so much information, because you're so great at what you do. You have a responsibility to keep going, to be your best, not just for yourself, but for the impact that you're making. And I feel the same way about just having these conversations. So it is important work that we do in this industry. We get to impact change at such a high level. And I don't think people realize that when they think of the commercial real estate industry, because it's everything. You're talking about, yes, we're at 3D printing residential homes, but ultimately master plan communities. I mean, this is serious stuff. And those communities will be built with or without 3D printing. Can you get there first and do it better so it's better for our planet? I would like to hope so. So, it seems like small things and we often put things off and, say, yeah, tomorrow I'll go to the gym. And then 2 years later and, you still never went. It's important. And I really do. I appreciate you sharing because it's not always easy.
Of course. Yeah, thank you. And this is something because it's also personal to me. I really like to extend that to my work and really with the homes that we build, the designs that we do,
Yeah.
really incorporate that personal experience of how do you incorporate movement into a home. So having an exercise, a fitness facility at home, to be able to make it easier for people to exercise every day. So things like that really like I'm personally passionate about. I want to see others implement that will help them in their life.
Totally. Because it shouldn't be a struggle. It should be exciting. It should be, a place that feels good and inviting and brings you energy. So are you guys building outside of California? Because this sounds like my dream life, my dream home
Well,
situation. And I want
so
all my
we
neighbors
actually
to
have
also be in this situation. So talk to me.
our
Where
next
are you guys
project
building?
is in the state of Washington. It's a community of
Okay.
10 homes that will be focused specifically as an active aging community. And
Amazing.
there's a tremendous need for that now, even though we said millennials are the biggest home buyers. But with baby boomers, what's happening is that baby boomers are retiring and looking to a lot of the times, either move somewhere for retirement, downsize from a larger home to a smaller home, but into a home that would actually help them age in place and age actively. That's something that is lacking today. I mean, the only options are typically going to a nursing facility, or going to kind of a age-restricted community. But even those communities, there are those single-family communities that are 55 and over. But when you look at the home designs, they're not optimal. They're not really designed for people to age in
No.
place, to be active. And so that is something that we're looking to change also with our next home design, which would be for this particular community. And we're working with our medical advisor, Dr. Brett Thomas, to really get these designs to the kind of the best possible solution and incorporate all the wellness features that would be relevant to that particular demographic. Is accessibility. Obviously, there's single level homes, but also accessibility throughout the home, the ease of use of home, the automation of that home. So when you think about baby boomers, not huge adopters of technology. It's millennials who are biggest adopters. But at the same time, there's a need for automation and ease of use, and that's what technology can do.
Massively.
So when you
Yeah.
talk about home automation, even through Alexa, for example, my mother now is the biggest fan of Alexa. She's got a device in every
I love
single
that you
room.
brought this up. No, because I have a great aunt. She was in a senior living facility. All she wanted was to listen to her music, but she can't figure out how to work. She doesn't have an iPhone. She's not working an app on her phone. No.
Yeah,
It
so
changed her whole
instead of
life
an
to be able
app
to talk to
control, you do
Alexa.
voice control. Yeah.
Yeah, it changed her whole life. She didn't have to do anything. It was set up for her, and it brought so much joy to all of us knowing that we could send even songs to her Alexa, or we could, know that she's, having a pleasant morning listening to whatever it is that she's excited to listen to. That's huge. So, so you're about to tell me that you're going to come build developments down here in Florida next, because that's what makes the most sense. Both because I'm going to make my case tons of solar, right? We're good on that. We have so many 55 and older communities that need help that, I mean, oh my God, and so much land to do better with. So just saying, it might be a little bit like the water table is quite high here. Shh, pretend I didn't say that. But Florida, we have a lot of people, a lot of aging in place people who need support. So I'll just put that
Absolutely.
out there.
That would be a great
Drop
next
that in there.
market for us. So
Good.
looking forward to going there.
Awesome. All right. Well, now I can. That's all I needed. So we're good. No, but really, Basil, I truly could go into a whole another podcast episode about the senior living and the aging communities, because it's such an underserved market and there's such an incredible, I mean, we all have some senior in our life that we can think of that we would love for them to have a home that supported their aging process, and their life, so we didn't have to worry a little bit less and they were comfortable. But we won't do that right now. We might have to bring you back another time to talk about that, and maybe while it's being built and stuff like that, we can see how it's going. But this has been so great. I really hope whoever's still listening at 47 minutes, I hope you guys are immediately connecting with Basil after this episode, because they have so much great information, and I think it's just the beginning of their journey.
Absolutely. We started 3 years ago, so we still have a lot of runway ahead of us, and we're looking to be part of this industry and innovating and driving change going forward.
Well, thank God we have people like you guys working in this industry. So I'm going to drop the website. I'm going to drop your LinkedIn in the description for all of you guys to find Basil, connect with him, check out what Polari is doing. And thank you so much. I can't wait to share the episode.
Thank you, Marielle. Thank you for having me.